Hi there, it's Anna-Lena here. I'm back with another chapter of the story The Mollimi People from Deep Space, and it's chapter 13 and it's called Total Confusion at the TV Station. When Emma and Martin land in the park, it is still the same evening that they left. They stand a moment to look at the starry sky. They say nothing. Then they find their bicycles, which are still hidden behind the bush. Martin helps Emma with getting her parents' bicycles home to her house, and before he bikes home himself, they agree to meet just outside the city in half an hour. Emma crawls up the ladder to the balcony outside her room. She lets out a sigh of relief. The door is not locked, and inside the room everything is as it was when she left. She leans her bow and quiver against the wall and finds the key to her piggy bank. There is $137 in all inside. Some in bills, but the large amount is in coins. Then she writes a letter which she puts inside a bag along with all the money. Soon she is on her way out of the town, where she meets Martin, who also has a bag of money with him. Together they bicycle out to the fireworks warehouse, where they lay the bags of money with the letter outside the door. Back in town, they say goodbye to each other and agree to meet in the park the next day. Then they each bike home. A bit later, Emma and Martin each lay in their own beds, overwhelmed, tired and grateful. It has been a long and unforgettable day. They each fall asleep with a hand on their heart, and there, where dreams begin, they meet Amitola and Motega and the other Mollimis. The next day, Emma and Martin get out of school early, and with their bows and quivers and heart arrows on their backs, they walk around the city and watch people. Some look happy, others look sad. Some walk alone, others are with their friends or family. Some are busy, others have plenty of time. There are mothers with small children and business people dressed in suits and ties. There are old and young, men and women, children and adults. They meet street vendors and homeless people. Some experience that their hearts open up in a way that they have never experienced before. Emma and Martin walk by Thomas's house and decide to visit his family. It is a visit that ends with Thomas and his little sister Maya being allowed to move home to their good, kind grandmother. They also meet Frida and Rasmus, Christian's old friends, who become friends with Christian again that same evening. Dusk is about to fall, and they have walked a good way out of the city. Emma looks around and she suddenly recognizes the place. Wait, we are almost at my father's work. It's just around the corner and on the next road to the right. She's puzzled. That's funny. Martin looks around. Should we? Emma looks expectantly at Martin. Visit your father? Martin laughs a little, and Emma does the same. Then they go to the TV station where Eric Sundergaard is a television news host. They know Emma well at the TV station, and the two are allowed to go into the studio where Eric is about to present the news. Emma and Martin's eyes are huge when they hear the first story, and they almost can't keep themselves from breaking out into smiles. We have a report of an unusual theft from a warehouse outside the city. The warehouse is a storage place for fireworks, and it seems that the thieves had a key to let themselves in. The thieves have taken some very powerful screeching batteries. What makes this theft so unusual is that the thieves later left a letter to deeply apologize and explain that the batteries were used for a very important mission. They have also left money for the stolen goods, some of it in paper bills, but most of it in small change. The police consider the innocent to be the work of innocent boys and say that the goods are paid for. They will not look further into the case. Emma and Martin look at each other and smile in relief. Eric continues to present the news from one of the world's war zones. Emma and Martin look at each other and nod. Then they go into action. Martin takes a hard arrow from his quiver on his back, draws the arrow in the bow, and aims. With full concentration, he releases the arrow and it strikes Eric in the chest. The beautiful red colored light with the contour of an eye in the middle lights up Eric's entire chest before the light disappears inside his body. Eric stops in the middle of everything. Then it is as if time has stopped. He stares blankly into the camera and looks a bit astonished. Then he looks around at all the other employees in the studio and afterwards down at his papers. He humbles a bit more about a bomb explosion where innocent people have lost their lives. He repeats the sentence, but then he stops. His face has a tormented expression, and he swallows a lump in his throat. But these are people just like myself and my family. How can we allow this to happen? Eric's eyes fill with tears. I sit here night after night and present the news without allowing it to touch me. Eric puts his hand over his heart and dries his tears. I actually just want to be happy. He remains sitting for a bit and shakes his head in doubt, but then after some time he looks into the camera, takes a deep breath from down in his stomach and continues with a thick voice. My wife always runs around like a headless chicken, and she never has time for herself. It's because I'm almost always too tired and I only think of myself and my work. He swallows and continues. I love her very much and now she wants to leave me, and it's because I'm becoming a grumpy old man. He looks sadly into the camera. My little son says good night to me in front of the television. Now there is total confusion inside the television studio, and Emma and Martin are busy sending hard arrows off into the chests of the crew so that the TV broadcast is not interrupted. Camera crew, lighting crew, sound crew, editing crew, and other employees go through a transformation that allows the broadcast to continue, as they are now eager to hear Eric's moving story. At home in the living room, Victor sits and watches his father on the news. He doesn't understand it, but runs into the kitchen to his mother, who stands and hums while she's washing up the dishes. Mom, Dad is crying on TV and says that you run around like a headless chicken and that he is a grumpy old man. Birgitte looks at her son in surprise, but she smiles. I think maybe you can also become a really good actor, sweetie. But Mom, it's true, come. Victor takes his mother's arm and pulls her along with him. Birgitte has the dish brush in one hand and gets the biggest shock of her life when she sees her husband on the news with tears in his eyes. I don't understand what's happening. Eric has his hand over his heart. It's as if I can feel my heart. I truly can. Eric looks directly at the camera with bright eyes, and now people all over the nation begin to gather around their TVs in their own little homes. Do you know what my wife wishes for her Christmas gift? Eric's large eyes look straight at the camera. She wishes for peace on earth and that all children are safe and well. Eric dries his eyes and shakes his head sadly. She's so sweet, and she's making a giant garland that will symbolize peace on earth. She hopes to gather as many people as possible on Christmas Eve at 12 o'clock noon at the City Hall Square. Then everyone can add a ring to the garland. I'm sorry, Birgitte. I do really think that it's a very beautiful idea. Just as beautiful as you. At home in the living room, Birgitte sits stunned as she looks at Eric. I also think that you are really beautiful, Mom. Victor looks at his mother, his radiant smile. He's radiant with joy. Birgitte doesn't make a sound. I miss you so much, Eric sighs. Can you remember that time we slept out under the stars in our sleeping bags? He blinks a few times. You know that time we played Siamese earthworm twins? Eric makes a goofy laugh. All over the country, in all the small homes, more and more people continue to come and watch the unusual news report. There are old and young, children and adults, watching their television screens. Then Eric smiles. Do you know what? There's one thing that I have always dreamed of doing. Then Eric bows and stares into the camera. His eyes are open wide, and he has a wild and funny look on his face and asks, "What exactly are you guys staring at?" Then Eric Sandegård laughs loudly from his heart, and at home in the living room, Birgitte scratches her head absent-mindedly with the dish brush. No way! Your dad is just so cool! Martin looks at Emma and laughs. Do you think so? Emma looks completely thunderstruck, but then she can't stop from laughing either. Birgitte, can you remember that time when we were on a vacation in Sweden and our old car broke down in the Swedish forest? Can you remember what we did in the back seat to pass the time while we waited for the roadside services for over 2 hours? Eric smiles foolishly and raises his eyebrows in a happy memory, but the thunderstruck Birgitte raises a finger to her mouth. Eric, you can't. It's being sent out over the whole country. In heaven's name, Eric. She looks terrified, but Victor looks expectantly at his mother. What did you do with the car, Mom? Birgitte just shakes her head in terror. But across the nation there are many who have a blissful smile on their lips. The other employees at the TV station also smile happily. But now a furious director shows up. His face is deep red and he walks in front of the camera. Yeah, we apologize for this. It is unfortunate that Christmas is sometimes just a bit too much for some people. We can assure you that our news host is no longer employed here with us. Now Eric is looking at the camera from behind the man's back and he is smiling and waving. He doesn't look sorry at all that he's being fired. The director snaps angrily at him. For goodness sake, man, keep it together. But then something happens. A reddish, pulsing light with the contour of an eye at the center lights up in the director's chest. Then it disappears inside his body. A few seconds later, it is as if time has stopped. He coughs a little and begins to stammer uncertainly. Then he takes a deep breath and looks quizzically into the camera. I always want to be the boss, and I hardly ever bother to listen to what others have to say. My ex-wife and my wife, they don't like me, and I will soon be divorced again. I can actually honestly understand them. He shrugs his shoulders in surrender, and there are more people who don't think very much of me. He sighs deeply, and all around the studio more and more of the crew are nodding cautiously at each other. The director shakes his head sadly, and after a while he puts his hand over his heart and smiles crookedly. Then he raises his brows and looks at Eric. So, Eric, old boy, what was actually wrong with your car in the Swedish forest? Eric smiles back at him kindly. Well, you see, the engine stopped running. Do you know what? That's happened to me before as well. The newly changed director pats him on the shoulder, and they are now laughing together. And the atmosphere at the TV station reaches new heights when the cameraman positions himself in front of the camera and sings a beautiful love song while the weather lady and the sound man smile lovingly at each other. Emma and Martin look at each other and laugh.